and welcome to Make It with Miss Mandee. Today I've got a really fun spring paper craft to share with you. We're going to be putting together these adorable flower pots. Not only are these just super cute, but they're actually boxes that you can store things in, so it's a little bit of extra fun for you. To make these, all that you need are some sheets of cardstock in various colors, some hot glue, a little bit of floral wire, floral tape, and then I like to use a bone folder to get my creases extra tight. And then of course on top of that, if you have a cutting machine, that'll help you greatly. I use a Cricut Maker. And then the template you can download for free on my website, designsbymissmandee.com, and I'll put a link in the description. So let's get started. So I've just finished cutting out all of my pieces using my Cricut, and I'm ready to get going. So right now I'm just going to focus on my pot. So I'm going to set the rest of these aside just for a little bit. Okay, so for the pot, we're just going to start with this little shape here. And then if you used the file that includes score marks, you're just going to start making folds along each of those lines. So I'm just going to fold all of my little tabs inward. Once those are all folded, we're just going to go around with hot glue and tack them each down one at a time. You don't want to do too many at a time, otherwise it might get misshapen a little bit easier. So one at a time, we're going to tack each of these tabs down to the inside of our circle piece until we have it all the way around. So I just finished gluing down all of my tabs, and if your pot is a little bit misshapen, something you can do is just kind of squeeze the edges or roll it around just to try to get it that circular shape that you're looking for. Once you have it where you're happy, the next thing to do is just to add this little liner to the bottom. And all you need to do is put some hot glue on it. Ooh, running out of ammo. Whoops. Then tack that down. This helps cover up your mess at the bottom of all the glue and tabs, but then it also just adds a little bit of reinforcement to the bottom of your pot so that if you do put things in it, it just makes it a tad bit stronger, which is nice. Okay, let me grab some more hot glue, and next we are going to work on our lid. So the pieces for the lid include this funny looking piece here, these two liner pieces, and then this piece that we'll use at the end. So to make your lid, you're going to do basically the same thing you did with the bottom of the pot, except this time it's not going to, see how this one tapers outward? This one isn't going to do that. So one thing I did forget to mention though on the pot is that if you have particularly stiff paper that you're working with, it can be nice to kind of roll your paper a little bit before you get started. This just helps give the paper a little bit of, I don't know, memory so that when you do try to make it be a circle, it's a little more willing to do your bidding. Because right now we're trying to ask a flat piece of paper that's pretty stiff to be round, and if you glue it all in place without doing this, sometimes depending on the type of paper you are using, it might not work out that well. So anyway, yeah, so just go ahead and fold down all your tabs, and same thing, just work your way all the way around the top, and I'll meet you at the end. All right. So I just finished up the lid, and now I'm going to put this on top. This is like our dirt that's going inside the pot, and we're just going to glue it right on top. Be careful not to put any hot glue right in the middle because we're going to need to poke a hole there, and if there's a giant blob of hot glue, then it's just going to be harder to do. Okay. Gonna set that down right there. And then once again, if you used the file that included the score lines, you'll notice that this piece, maybe you can see it, has a tiny little circle scored into the middle of it. This obviously wasn't to create a fold or anything. I just did this in the design so that you wouldn't have to eyeball where the hole should go, just to make it a little bit easier for you. So this is where your floral wire eventually is going to poke right through. And so we're just going to make a little hole in the center. You can do this with like a push pin or sewing needle, whatever you might happen to have on hand. I am just using the little weeding tool that I use with my Cricut. I'm trying not to stab myself. We'll see how that goes. There we go. Okay, and you don't want to make it too big because you don't want your wire flopping around. You want it to still be fairly small. But that's it. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to I'm going to do this liner later, and you'll see why. But we are going to put the rim of our pot onto the lid. And this just adds a little bit of cute embellishment to make it look more like a flower pot. And so you're going to want to glue it so that it overhangs a little bit on both sides, both the top and the bottom. And be very, very careful to line it up perfectly when you get started so that as you're rolling it along, it'll stay centered. So I'm going to start doing that, and once again meet you at the end when I'm done. Okay. So my lid is pretty much finished for now. So I am just going to set that aside over here next to my pot. And the next thing I'm going to focus on are my flowers. To make the daffodil, all you have to do is kind of curl up the edges of your petals just slightly. And I'm doing this just with the edge of my bone folder, but you can just do it with your fingers if you'd like to, or even a pair of scissors if you're careful. There we go. These don't have to be super curly, but just giving them a little bit of bend will make them look really nice. And then for the center of the daffodil, we just need this yellow piece, and we're going to make it pretty similarly to the way that we did both the lid and the pot. I'm going to start curling the paper just a little bit so that it's a little bit easier to do that. The only main difference on this one is where we glued the tabs to the inside of the circles before. We're actually going to be gluing it to the outside of the circle this time. And this is because the back side of this is not going to show because it's going to be tacked down to the inside of our flower petals when we're done. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold these down and then glue them around the outside of my circle piece. Then the last thing I'm going to do before I glue these all together is I'm just going to bend these little curved edges of my inner petals just slightly. This just gives it a tad more shape. All right, now that that's done, I'm just going to layer my two pieces of petals together like this and glue them together. And then add my little yellow piece. You can of course make a regular style daffodil if you'd like, just by using yellow paper for both the little trumpet part and the petals, but I really like two-tone daffodils. They're my favorites, so that's why I decided to do the two different colors. So there you go, the daffodil is done. And I'm only going to be using one flower for this piece, but I thought I'd show you how to make the tulip as well in case you'd rather do the tulip. So the tulip, we are just going to curl all the petals inward like so, really emphasizing the very tip on the edge and then the base near the center. Make sure those are curled nice and tight. And then you can tell that I used score marks on both the tulip petals and the daffodil petals. And these weren't to be used as folds, they're actually just used as, just for aesthetics purposes. I think that's the first time I've ever done that in a design. But when I was looking at pictures of tulips and flowers, daffodils, I was noticing that the petals all seem to have a little vein that goes down the center of them. And so I thought just by adding a little score line there, that could make it just an easy way to add a little bit more detail. You know, anything to make it a little bit more fun and authentic. Okay, so now that all of my petals are curled, I am just going to layer these together, and I'm going to, so I made this one a little bit different, and this one is the one I'm going to use as my outside petal. So I'm going to start with these two, and I'm not going to make them perfectly into a square shape. I'm going to kind of make an X with them since I'm trying to make this like a 6-petal flower, not 4-petal flower, so it's going to be a little bit off-centered like that. Hopefully that makes sense. And then this one's just going to go on the outside of all of these, like right here. And once it's all pieced together, you'll probably have to kind of recurl your petals a little bit just to get them in the precise spot that you want. But for the most part, there you go, you've got a tulip shape. All right, so the next part is going to be making the stem for your flower. So I've got a little piece of floral wire here. You can make it as long or short as you like. I've done a few of them, and between 5 and 7 inches is about what I've found looks nice to me. But it depends on how big or small you ended up making the box. If you did a different size than I did, then the length of your stem could vary. Whatever looks nice to you, it's in your hands. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking my floral tape, and I'm not starting at the very end because this is what's going to poke through the top of my lid later on, and so I need to leave just a little bit of extra wire right here. But otherwise, I'm just going to wrap the floral tape all the way up the length of the stem. Now that I have that done, I'm going to add in my 2 leaves. Before I put them on, I'm just going to give them a slight curl, just to give this even more dimension. And then I'm going to add these closer to the bottom of my stem. And to do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on. And this doesn't always stick to the floral tape super well, so I might have to add a little bit more. But basically, I'm just hot gluing this to the wire, and then I'm going to take another piece, just a small piece of floral tape, and wrap it around the leaf. Just like that. And then I'll just repeat the process with the other one. Now that my stem is complete, I am just going to add my flower. So I'm just going to glue the back of my daffodil, and I'm gonna keep the fold on the bottom, just so it's a little bit less noticeable. Anyway, but yeah, just a little bit of glue, on the back side of my flower. Then I'm just going to take this little star-shaped piece. I'm just gonna curl the edges just a little bit. You don't have to do this. I don't know. I think it makes it look just even a touch more realistic. And it kind of helps hide the wire a little bit better. Then I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the inside. And attach that to the back of my flower. There you go. So we're on the home stretch now. We're just going to be placing our flower into the base of our lid. So first I'm going to give this just a nice tight bend before I stick it in. And once that's in there, I'm going to bend it one more time. Okay. Then I'm going to put a generous amount of hot glue. Hold on, I want my flower to face a different direction. Okay, all right, sorry. So I'm going to put a generous amount of hot glue underneath the wire. And then hold it in place like that. Okay, once that has had ample time to dry and your flower seems pretty secure, you can add your last liner to your lid. Okay. And that'll cover up that wire and all of your tabs. Plus it'll help keep your flower in place just a little bit better. Well, there you have it. Your flower pot box is complete. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and happy crafting!